I think this weekend was pretty much like a lock-in that this sort of price action was going to develop, I think. We had like such a range of emotion last week, and I think that this week, and this weekend, I think it was a pretty much nailed on that we would get some price action that was going to be like this. Hence, I tweeted about it. People on the stream will know pretty regularly we talk about, these moves into futures open, and, they take place at some point over the weekend, and then we end up retracing in the hours before futures open. And it tends to be just this, punishing PA that we get, at times like this. And so, I think this weekend of all of them was probably well set up for it. Lower liquidity conditions, opportunity to take some stops. Looks as though it did that. And now we wait to see if they pull the bottom run as well. Because realistically, what would be the nicest situation here is we've had the sweep of the highs here, so we've taken out this high over here now, this one, and obviously now that sets us up for looking at the downside and where we may potentially run to on the downside. So we've got a relatively decent area through here, and then you're probably going to have your lows somewhere down here. Obviously we're going to have this area first, but now that we've run everything through here, then I would just turn the attention to this area down here. Now we may not get that until tomorrow. I would prefer it to happen now. Like, I would rather they just spend the next 2 hours hitting the downside on this. I think that would be better, like a better setup for the week, because I think, if we're going to do this now and then we're going to do this before futures open and then we just recover back inside here, we're going to close inside here, that would be the best sort of scenario. My thought process at this period of time is slightly skewed, I think, and scuffed because of this. This candle, this candle, this monster that they decided to pull on Wednesday. What a day that was. I think for a lot of people, that's probably the first time you will have experienced something like that. The way that OI got absolutely torched, right, that was unique. Everybody that's saying, "Oh, if you've been around for a while, you'll know that BTC can do these things." Nah, that was a monster of a day. So, don't be fooled into thinking that, number one, you should have anticipated it. Number two, that it's normal. It's far from fucking normal what occurred on that day. Now, we know that was accompanied by some news that kind of didn't transpire to be quite correct. And we also know that Jump's involvement in that was also a huge negative and a downwards push, despite there being a difference in the timings. That's where the Wednesday candle should have closed. It kind of feels as though this is the candle that should have been on Wednesday. Right? That's basically what it felt like to me. Because we just had this reactionary moment and the market went crazy, and obviously we had a load of longs on the way up as well that got torched. So maybe it was just a genuine but with a little bit of help market move. But it felt as though the market basically wanted to try and push higher, and then it got slammed and snowballed from that situation back down. It's like the Kobe candle, during the consolidation, when we looked as though we were breaking out, failed, and then the next day kind of basically got back at it again. The 3-day is slightly more concerning, but only from the autumn oscillator perspective, and not even particularly. Like, this area here is diverging, so the last two highs are diverging, so it's not even this one here, it's like this little impulse that we had through here into the high. So like, this is where we show a slowdown in momentum between these 2 points. And I don't particularly like the look of this. I can't deny the fact it's there, but I don't particularly like the fact that it starts kind of mid-consolidation versus clean high. So we start here, we diverge this one up here. We did something similar in this region where we diverge between these legs here. Then we ended up moving to the downside and then ripping back up higher and pushing this fresh. That is the dream of the bulls here, is that you get a move so strong that basically once again just pull the awesome oscillator up here. So that move, I would suspect, would need to take us probably somewhere in 34k plus if we are to get out of this zone here. I suspect we're going to need something very significant to push us out of this. So if we take a look at SPX first, this was a really, really good weekly close. This looked absolutely dead and buried. So you take a look at this area here. We looked as though we were just rounding this off into this important resistance zone through here at kind of, the 4160s. And we'd finally started to break down, got some impulse, ended up just basically taking out stops here before almighty recovery. And a market that looks like this, from my perspective, RSI bouncing off the 50 level and closing above the daily resistances that we've seen so far here. So this is like, 1, 2, 3, 4 taps into this zone. And this is the breakthrough candle on the back of resetting the RSI here. If this was any altcoin in crypto, then I would be going crazy about this. It's such a good setup. You move the line, yeah. I think it's from a higher time frame. So, but yeah, for me, this is such a strong looking setup. The way this 3-day is set up here looks as though it wants to continue higher. With the way the weekly set up here looks as though it wants to continue higher, and the monthly as well. And the monthly is in a really good position for the close that it managed to achieve through this region. So I think this looks great. So again, add it to the strong market category. Another risk market looking very good. All of the momentum indicators so far on the higher time frames indicate it's got plenty of room to run to the upside. Then you swap to the Nasdaq and you basically say exactly the same thing, but it looks even better because of the last monthly close. March monthly close was far better for the Nasdaq. This monthly was fine. Again, the weekly scenario here is also looking great. If this was an altcoin, you'd want to be getting long on a weekly candle that's starting to break above the consolidation. Ideally, we turn this into a demand region here. So we just end up trading higher first, turn this into a demand region, tap in, run again. But Nasdaq has just been consistently holding this 3-day region here. So it's 12.7s, and it's been doing a very good job. So something I spoke about in the Haven midweek was, I think that what people have done is they've taken a bearish crypto bias and they've applied it, they've like copy and pasted it straight into an index bias. Whereas actually, I think the Nasdaq has been incredibly strong. So this market has been very, very good. We've had a horrendous consolidation period in terms of chop back and forth. But this is a great break free of that. Fingers crossed. It's a great break free of that. We just ended up taking all of the lows down here, trading back down towards this level, and then again ripping in the opposite direction. Now the dollar has the advantage of monthly support. It has the advantage of monthly support through this region. So it is so far holding monthly support. That's great. That's about all the dollar has going for it. And I think once you start diving into the dollar, it's more and more concerning when you start going into the lower time frame price action. So the first point that I received like a lot of people talking about is, yes, but the dollar is on monthly support. And absolutely you are correct in identifying and saying that. The concern is that the dollar is at this level now for the second time in 4 months. So this is now weak bounce away, immediate fresh low, and still trading at this level. So only managing a small bounce away over the course of a month, and then reversing that entire move to end up back at this support. So this is now the second support test in 4 months. The trend on the dollar is obviously quite clearly to the downside. This is your performance here in 2023. So you've basically just been trash in 2023. That started obviously earlier than that when dollar peaked over here at the 115s. And every move on the dollar so far is getting absolutely slammed into. All right, so, higher time frame analysis on ETH. This is not good. This is not a good level to be trading underneath. So this is what we don't want to see on the indexes, where you get this nice pop above the resistance zone and then you get the immediate close back down the other side red. And so far, just anything that's coming back above the 1930s being sold into. So for now, this isn't a good look. RSI perspective, fine. It's still the same as BTC. If I try to imagine that this line doesn't exist, then it still looks exactly the same as BTC. 3-day, fine. Again, position on it is okay. And the daily's also okay as well. Behind BTC in terms of the awesome oscillator, not yet crossing back over positively, but this is awful through here. And the reaction that we've seen versus the reaction on BTC isn't a good look either. So really not a good look on that side of things. This would still be your short preference market. We said that for the longest possible time on ETH, but it would still be the short preference market. If you were looking at shorting, BTC, I would advise you not to and instead short this. This is such an easier market to take the short side on. And again, even now you're operating in such a great short positioning point. I would begrudge absolutely nobody either shorting from this level, for buying puts at this level. You cannot begrudge anybody the thought process in doing that. It's such a kind of a simple trade trigger that, again, it just makes sense. The risk reward here just makes sense to be thinking about this. Silver on the daily is just consolidation. It's just chop and consolidation, and it's trying its best to basically continue to hold the upper 24s through here. So we can see that every time that we've had wicks down into this region, we're just getting bought up at this point in time. This is the level silver really wants to hold, at the low 24s, and so far we're doing a pretty good job of that. 12 hour is back down towards a reset point here. Looks as though it wants to try and start impulsing against these highs through here. Again, really strong close. We finally closed at the highs of a former 12-hour consolidation cluster, and looks pretty primed for an upside push. Again, on the 4-hour here, I think you would be pretty comfortable trying to move into this based on the strength that we're starting to see in the movement away. So I think that silver also is a market that looks very good. We know that the main resistance is up here, 2750s, 28s. That's going to be the next level of interest on silver. That's the next monthly point that we run into through here. So RSI on the monthly, great position. I think silver is going to end up running into this zone here before we see a bigger correction. Gold is slightly different because it's had some divergences through these highs, but gold doesn't really respond too well to divergences at the moment, as illustrated by this whole region through here. All of these highs were basically lower highs through here, and then we ended up just ripping up for the leg higher. And it very much appears as though gold is just doing exactly the same thing again here. We're getting very close to the reset point now. We've hit our reset point here. We've had no real downwards price action, which is always one of the major concerns that you would have. If you're playing this as a bear and you're looking at shorting, then you should be concerned that this divergence hasn't given you anything yet. Unless you're Pico top shorting this is really giving you nothing at this moment in time. And we're now back at a point where we would be more interested in trend continuation than we would be shorting this. So also gold sets up very nicely. 3-day, still fine, plenty of room. Weekly, still fine, plenty of room. Monthly, obviously heaps of room, especially if it starts.